Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Reasonably Effective podcast brought to you by myself, Uncommon Fossil, and 10 Types.
Yep. Hello, everyone.
All right, so what are we going to talk about this week? We're going to talk about what's coming up with post-rotation world, which is where they're playing, where things are at in Japan. So we talked about some of the City League decks, I imagine, plus there was another big event there. So it's the time of recording, and when this drops, it'll be about 2.5 weeks before the rotation. Assuming rotation happens when the new cards drop, I assume they will in live. We're about 2.5 weeks away from that. So coming up fast, approaching. So I think we're going to start. One of the things with rotation, a lot of the decks, the top decks are actually the same decks, like Dragapult, Raging Bolt, Charizard, Goldingo, Archaludon, Gardevoir. Those are like the top 6 decks from some research you did. The decks lists have changed some, but not huge. So we're going to talk about just some of the decks we think are a little more interesting with things. And one of the things that's happening is Noctowl is becoming a much bigger engine. It's a big engine anyway, and it's a very powerful card. But it's getting used by more and more decks, and we're going to start off with a couple decks, like the Terra Box deck, which certainly features the Noctowl. Right? Is there anything else you want to say introducing things?
Yeah, let's talk about. So some of you might not be super familiar with the post-rotation meta. Obviously, rotation. We're actually losing cards with rotation. So you said the top decks post-rotation are decks that you can play pre-rotation, but something like say Lugia or Regidraco, these are rotated. You can't play them at all. And then Noctowl. I mean, it's played some now, but some decks that are starting to adopt it are Raging Bolt and Charizard. Because it's not really something that's played too much in those decks now, or actually very. I don't think I've seen it much at all. And then the top 2 decks in Japan right now, by a bit of a margin, they make up about not quite half the metagame, but a lot of the metagame in Japan are Dragapult EX and Raging Bolt EX. They're both Dragon type decks, and they're the best decks. So we'll mention that. That'll definitely become a little important because Dragon Pokemon don't really have a natural counter. I mean, they don't have a weakness, right?
Right. Dragon Pokemon don't have weakness in standard now. At one point in time, they used to, though, right?
Yeah, they were weak to Fairy at one point, and weak to Dragon as well. And yeah, Dragon Pokemon have had like a weird history with the TCG.
Right. So now that we have them back, they have no weaknesses, but there'll be something to address that because, I guess Dragapult is still very highly played. Raging Bolt's still very good. So being able to hit Dragon Pokemon for weakness is an important thing. And we are losing some important things. Deck lists change, right? We're not going to spend a lot of time, but for instance, Gardevoir, I'm just going to, it's losing the good Curlia, but Gardevoir is still a good card, good single price attacking, so it's around. It's just going to change some with a bunch of rare candies getting added in. And the other card I just got to make mention now because I don't think we're going to talk about a deck that features it, and I just want to mention the Dunsparce EX. I've talked about it a little bit in the past. I like the Dunsparce engine. It's in certain decks like Goldingo use it, which is a fun deck. And if you're playing the Dunsparce engine, you're going to probably slap in a Dunsparce EX because it does 60 damage per opponent's EX in play. So that's like Goldingo's is all standard cards except you're going to slap in a Dunsparce EX, which not a big change, but that's just another card to kind of keep in mind with things out there.
Yeah, you don't have to play the Dunsparce engine either. You can play, like, some people are playing Goldingo with Dragapult. It's not like super common, but those are mixed together a little bit. And there's a bunch of different ways to play these different decks. We mentioned Noctowl in something like, say, Charizard, but it's not always in Charizard. And so the engines are being mixed up a little bit because we are losing Curlia, as well as like Bibarel, Radiant Greninja, Pokestop, Rotom V, Force Seal Stone, these different types of support cards, support Pokemon. Force Seal Stone's not a Pokemon, but it is an ability, or has an ability.
Right, it's a tool that gives you an ability. Right, I mean, like Charizard gets knocked out because right now you got Rotom V, you have Lumineon V, both of those getting lost. You have Forest Seal Stone, so it just makes decks change. But it's still Charizard. It's still got the damage placing guy that knocks himself out that I'm blanking on right now.
Oh yeah, Dusknoir. Yep.
Dusknoir. So the deck's mostly the same, but kind of the engine stuff is what's changed some. We haven't. For the most part, I don't think we're losing huge trainer cards. Forest Seal Stone's big. We're not losing like a card like Nest Ball. We're not losing Ultra Ball. We're not losing Buddy Buddy Poffin. Those type of things would shift decks a lot. We're not losing. Are we losing any huge trainers? I don't know that
I
we are.
mean, yeah. Yeah, I mean, like Force Seal Stone, Pokestop, and then Double
Yeah,
Turbo Energy. Not a trainer, but that's
yeah,
probably where, especially when you just get grouped in. We talked about like the Hall of Fame rotation
right,
a few weeks ago, I think. Anyways, but and the reason for this, usually the first set of the block is what brings new trainers, right? Like these mainstays, like
right,
Boston Research.
right.
But this year,
Go ahead.
which is actually an interesting thing, is that there's the new Mega Block, which or kind of, we're not exactly sure what's going on with that, but this is the start of some presumably like mini block, but this is a new block, so it might be reintroducing major trainers to the game. So that's something to keep an eye out for.
Right. It kind of, yeah, we're not going to dive into that, but it fits a bit with talking about the megas last week. That when the megas come out, I think which will be the third set of 20 of this calendar year, it is officially the end of Scarlet and Violet. The
Oh, sorry,
megas
third main set,
third,
because we
yeah,
had Prismatic Evolution.
yes, okay. So yeah, sorry, that's what I meant to say. So, third, okay. So, but there'll be two blocks of these trainers Pokemon, which is part of what we're getting with
Two
this
set.
two sets of that. We're getting battle partners being or journey together is the first one, which happens drops with rotation, and we'll be obviously getting some of those trainers Pokemon, another set, and then Mega Pokemon for either 6 months or a year and a half. I think that's a bit unclear, but I think we don't fully know that, but we know what's happening. We fully know right at this point we're getting in Journey Together. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think I
Or
don't know all the cards. Like I don't necessarily know off the top of my head which cards. So you said Battle Partners. Battle Partners is the Japanese expansion.
right,
Expansion pretty much has all the important cards. There's like Blaziken EX. There's a Lilligan, and there's a Zacian EX, a regular Zacian EX. I think that's not in the set. It's
okay.
being played a little bit in Japan in Arcaladon. But then that's I think it's a promo in like a tin or something. But I don't actually know if that's true.
Right. So as we look at these Japanese decks, for the almost all of these, we're going to have all the cards in standard format shortly to play. There might be one or two cards that come a little later. So if we see something like that, we'll point it out. If we miss it, obviously, let us know in the comments to our videos as well there. So should we dive in now and start talking about TerraBox?
Yeah, and I'll kick things off here. Terra Box is so Terras are the Pokemon. I was gonna say they're basics. They're not all basics, but in this deck they generally are focused around a few different Terra Pokemon. This one I pulled up doesn't have Trapghost EX, but you can see that. Then Teal Master Pony EX, Wellspring Master Pony EX, and Pikachu EX. I think those are the main Terras. I don't think I'm missing any.
No, I think that's it. You mentioned possibly Terrapagos, right? As something in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And then also, sorry, you go.
it's the two Ogre Ponds, the Teal Mask, the Wellspring Mask, and the Pikachu. I think those are the ones that are in pretty much every Terra box I've seen.
Yeah, and then there's another attacker, or Pokemon. It's an attacker and does some different things. Well, there's a few, but Lily's Clefairy EX. This is a card. I mentioned Dragon Pokemon, super good, no weakness. But Lily's Clefairy EX is a Psychic Pokemon that gives all Dragon Pokemon, I believe, all your opponents, not yours. Not that matters much, but gives them all Psychic weakness. And then Lily's Clefairy EX has an attack that should pretty easily take out. I mean, it does 20 and 20 more for each bench Pokemon. Same attack as Raikou V. And and you're playing areas, your underdepths, your Terra, so you can, or your deck is a Terra deck, so you can use that, and we see Noctowl as well as the engine, and so you can pretty easily slot it in. A few things. Speaking of Terra Pokemon, again, Noctowl and areas, your underdepths, also Sparkling Crystal, which allows you to attack easier with these different Pokemon. Going for more aggressive plays at earlier points in the game. We also see Mew EX. Mew EX is interesting as it can hit weakness on these Dragon Pokemon with Lily's Clefairy EX in play. Not that
Right.
that's necessarily what you're looking to do. And then you have Blood Ursaluna EX is another attacker.
Right. And also, most of the list, if not all of them, played the Latias EX, which is another psychic Pokemon too, and that actually does even more damage. Not that you can't attack the next turn, so you're probably not attacking with it, but that's an option as well.
Yeah, wait, more damage than what, Mew EX? Is that what
Um,
you're saying?
yeah, and possibly more than the than Lily's Clefairy as well, depending. Right, you don't need any other Pokemon to play, But you do
Yeah,
need
I definitely say Mew EX and Lili's Clefairy EX are easier attackers. I mean, this list I'm looking at can't do an attack with Latias EX. A lot of lists can, but yes, it's not a great attacker. You don't really have any switch because you have free retreat, so it's going to be pretty difficult to attack back to back. This list does play a turret scenario though.
right. The Latias EX takes 2 psychic. The Lili's Clefairy is only 2 energy. That's part of, I mean, the Lili's Clefairy, yeah, I think I said it right. That's why that's a nice attacker because it's 2 energies. The deck does play Crispin, so you can power it up in 1 turn, which is important. And if you get knocked out, you have Night Stretcher, you can get it back in play immediately to follow it up if need be and to do a lot of damage. So and this Lili's Clefairy is long, like I said, Dragapult and right now Raging Bolt. Dragapult and the research you did right now in the City League, Dragapult was 24% of the decks played, and Raging Bolt is 21%. So that's what 45% of the decks being played were Dragon Pokemon. So Dragon weakness is huge. Obviously, for any deck that can have it. Obviously, that's part of why Gardevoir EX still stays very relevant, even though it's worse without Curlia, because it's even better, obviously, for hitting for Dragon weak for Psychic weakness. So it's a huge card in that. And in a related deck we'll get to is like the Evolution deck, right? Which has a lot of same pieces as these Terra boxes. Usually it has some psychic attacking options as well.
Yeah, and it is a Terra. I've heard some people refer to it within the Terra box conversation, like calling it Terra box. I mean, the evolutions are the EX evolutions are all
Right.
Terras, but I'm pretty sure they are. All the new ones are. But then, what are your thoughts on like how good do you think this deck is, and how fun do you think it is? As fun's obviously pretty subjective. But.
Right. I mean, I like box styles decks, so it gives a lot of options there for her types, which is terrific. Obviously, like I'm looking at this one list, you have like 5 grass. We have 2 psychic in this list. Sometimes you just play 1 psychic, and then you have like 3 or 4 energies of 1 copy of. So that if you need a Pokemon, of course, and you don't have that energy available, because it's prized, it does get awkward. So you're going to have some times like that. You just got to deal with it. But I like box style decks. And also the deck plays Crispin, so you do need multiple types of energies to power things up. The Noctowl engine is really good, right? We both were playing with the Drizzile Inteleon engine. That was really good. That was better than Noctowl because you didn't have to have another Pokemon to play. But as long as you're playing a Terra based deck and really a basic Terra deck, because I know some like Charizard EX, Charizard's a Terra, as is a Dragapult. Dragapult, I don't think is playing Noctowl engine. Some Charizard can be, but if you have to evolve to Charizard before you can use the Noctowl, it's not so useful. So you really need a basic Terra, and obviously big basics are always appealing. And then it sets up a nice engine. So I think it's got a lot of potential. It gives variability, including some walling options like the Wellspring Max Ogerpon can hit the bench, but you could also stall with it, right? It's always a threat and an option, depending as how the game goes. So, it's. I think they're good decks. I don't think they're easy decks to play though either.
Yeah, I also did play a few things about that. One, you said the energy thing is you only have one of like a lot of them, but Sparkling Crystal does cover that for something like say Pikachu EX,
Yep.
where you have probably one Lightning, one Metal. If you prize one of those, you can still use Sparkling Crystal to cover that. Obviously, would not work with Lili's Clefairy EX from Monkey Dory, or I guess any other non-Terra Pokemon. But I think Sparkling Crystal does help you in that situation. Also, did play a deck like this pre-rot or like now. Obviously not exactly the same, and it does play different Pokemon V. Like I think played Raikou V and Entei V. I don't remember. I found it online somewhere, but I played it. It was pretty fun. It was Noctowl based, Crispin, stuff like that. Energy Switch as well. And another Pokemon you could put in as well is Cornerstone S Ogerpon EX, introducing Fighting Energy. Not super easy to slot in. Also Raging Bolt. There are some similarities. Obviously TMS Ogerpon EX in them both. Presumably Noctowl in them. And you could. I have seen the different Ogerpons in. And then you could play Ogre's Mask in a deck that's like an Ogre box deck. I think that not just the Ogre Pawns, but you got other stuff going on. But I think Ogre's Mask is a really cool card. Are you familiar? How familiar are you with that card?
The ogres. Okay. I was gonna have to look it up. So, the
Yeah,
ogres.
I got you. I
All
got
right.
you.
Good.
So, it's you're familiar with Thornton, right?
Yes.
So
Yep.
it's like Thornton. It's an item, but for the Ogre Pawn EXs, specifically the EXs, we're actually getting a bunch of single prizers at some point. I think it's the next set. But anyways, yeah, Ogre's Mask is a really interesting card, I guess. I don't. You have you played with the Ogre Pawn box deck
I have a
with
little
Ogre's
bit.
Mask?
I did like a long time when shortly after, like early days with it, I would say, and it was underwhelming at that point.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty much my experience as well. But it's kind of fun. It's kind of weird. It's just, as you said, underwhelming. But I think with these different attacking options and with the meta, like kind of shifting towards this Ogre Pawn box style deck again with other things. But if you want to attack with Wellspring Mask Ogre Pawn EX, instead of using like a bunch of energy switches and Crispins, you could just use Ogre's Mask to kind of get a similar result, which I think is interesting. Again, I don't think it's like amazing, but I think it's a cool card to consider that I think has been forgotten about a bunch by people. But yeah, this is definitely a deck. One of them that I'm most excited to play. Again, we're talking about decks we like and decks that are new. There are some decks that like Dragapult and Charizard. Nothing crazy going on there, but I think this deck's fun. Your Pokemon, you said they're like big basics. They're not that big. I mean, Blood and Ursaluna EX is really big, but that's kind of different.
Right.
Um, but yeah, they're not like super tanky. Lily's Clefairy EX does have Lily's Pearl to give up one less prize. It's not super commonly played, but it is played some. And then Pikachu EX is, I guess, tanky, but not tanky against Monkey Dory.
Yeah, I shouldn't call them big basics. Only big basics, only big if you're trying to play a single prize deck, right? That's doing like
Yeah.
160 a shot, and usually you're in trouble with those decks because you need to be able to one shot these basic like EXs, right? Hit like 210, 220 to win games usually. One of the things also with these box style decks, like at this one list, they're playing Farigiraf, which I think we'll talk about some later. Which that's a stage one, and obviously you can put in some evolution lines. I think it's just playing a 1/1 line, but a part of it that walls off basic EXs. But also, like I would more reasonably this is play it, but you could like slot in a Mimikyu in a lot of decks. Obviously, you'd have the psychic energy in these lists for the most part. So, just having another way to kind of you know change the game plan a little bit, force your opponent to play around things. You can easily put in some of the little pieces, wrinkles to force your opponents to deal with stuff if that's what you think, where the meta is at the time.
Mhm. Well, also, you said you can like add Pokemon in. One of them is Monkey Dory, which is in the deck. Which I'm not a massive like fan of, and I think we were talking about this some before.
Right,
Monkey Dory and just like kind of random decks, you need to be surviving hits consistently or being chipped away on your bench by Dragapult. And it is nice against Dragapult to potentially give up one less prize. That's like really a really big deal. But you could play some other healing card or like Tercenary or something. And then, but nothing crazy there. But then with Wellspring Master Ogre Pawn X being, I guess, the center main attacker of the deck, being a snipe-based like spread/snipe-based attacker, this is really good because Manaphy is rotating, right? But then it is essentially
right.
coming back, not entirely, but with the Shaman in the next set, the second main set of the year.
So we're gonna be what 2-3 months without a bench protector, right?
Yeah, without a good one.
Right, and the new one, if you're not familiar, it only protects non-rule box Pokemon. Is that correct on the bench?
Yeah, I think it's non-rule boxes. I know it doesn't protect EXs.
Right.
Um,
And we don't have
there aren't
radiant
any other.
Pokemon, so there aren't really.
Yeah,
I don't think there's anything that would be an issue
yeah, but
like
I'm
that.
pretty sure it is no, just not rule box. But then like your TMS or your Pontiacs, I mean all the Terras are immune to bench damage, and
Right.
also it's not that common for your opponent to like be going after these Pokemon on the bench through snipe attacks. At least from what I've seen in standard. Again, there is Manaphy, but um. I mean, like Teal Mass Ogre or no, Wellspring Mass Ogre Pontiac still only sniping 120, which I guess two shots to these Pokemon on the bench, which is cool. But you're generally going after like Charmanders and Dreepies and Drakelos and Noctowls and Hoothoots and stuff.
Yeah. Now I haven't played a lot with the Wellspring Mask Ogerpon, or honestly, I've played it more in decks where it was a box that was a stall option potentially because you're doing 100 damage and you do 120 to a bench Pokemon good, but you're losing all your energy. So you might get knocked out, but obviously you're hoping not to get knocked out, I assume. But that means you've got to fully power up a Pokemon the following turn. So that gets dicey. You have Crispin, but that accelerates
Yeah.
with one energy. Now, or you have the sparkle. So you're kind of relying on sparkling crystal, but of course, once that's gone once that Pokemon's knocked out, you can't recover sparkling crystal. We do lost vacuum is rotating, correct? I am right about that.
Yeah.
So that makes Sparkling Crystal a lot stronger, right? That it's fallen off, I think, Sparkling Crystal, but obviously the fact that you could just lose it right away was a problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's like good in Dragapult. And I think it matters more there when Dragapult's surviving hits more. But yeah,
Yeah,
Sparkling Crystal staying on Pikachu EX is nice. Again, there is Jamming Tower, which is, can kind of stop these.
right.
I mean, it stops the tool, but doesn't remove the tool, so you can just bump it back. And then, yeah, Sparkling Crystal is pretty nice in these different Pokemon. You have Energy Switch, which is sometimes serving a similar role. You can only do
Yes.
2 Grass Ogre Ponds in most of these decks. Some play more, though, if they're Lily's Clefairy EX focused. Then it's like, just those 2 Pokemon. But
Right.
um, it's not like the Grass Ogre Pond's a big focus with the Energy Switch engine, or like way to power Pokemon up, but it is the part that can support the Sparkling Crystal and Crispins.
Right, because you have two Wellspring Overmask. You have five. I'm looking at all these lists seem to play five grass energies, which is decent. But really, to power an engine, that you've got to get the energy in hand too. So which you're not going to reliably be drawing into it with only five. So I'm not sure. I want to go back to the Monkey Dory comment because we were
Oh,
talking.
sorry. When I went to getting the energy in your hand, Crispin does. You said it accelerates one, but it gets one to your hand, which can be the
Yes.
grass. And you have Earth and like you can get them into your hand. As I said, I played this and I noticed at first I was like, this seems kind of weird to get energy in hand, but you do end up being able to stretch out grass energies a lot using Crispin.
Yeah, you're right. Crispin, you accelerate the non-grass, then you attach the grass, and then you draw, which gives you the draw when you attach it to your Terra Mask, to the Teal Mask Ogre, assuming it's working in live these days, if that's what you're doing. I honestly don't know what's working and not working in live, but that's
I
not.
found most stuff to work in live, honestly. Like we tested. I don't think we did we post it. I don't remember if we tested in the
Mm,
video or separately. Um,
yeah, I didn't
but
record when we tested. We tested some stuff, right, and just to see what was working and not.
yeah, but we were able to get it to glitch. But I haven't had it glitching. I haven't been playing a ton of live recently, to be honest. But I've had it, I think, work essentially every time, except for some weird stuff with Dragapult, with the damage counters. But that's like a different issue. But anyway, yeah. What about
Yeah.
Monkey Dory?
So the Monkey Dory, the two difficulties of Monkey Dory, and I think you addressed at least one. You addressed the one. You have to have a damaged Pokemon. Now, obviously, if you're up against Dragapult, that works well because they're putting 6 damage counters, but not which doesn't take a knockout, so you're healing up with that. But in a deck like this, where your basic EX Pokemon, there's a good chance they're getting one shot every turn, so you might not have a damaged Pokemon to heal off with Monkey Dory. That's where like Gardevoir obviously was good with Monkey Dory, and I imagine they're still playing Monkey Dory and Gardevoir lists now
Yeah,
because
it's still like it's so good there.
right, because you're damaging yourself, so you have it, but you also then have to attach the energy manually, which means you need an extra energy attachment. Which, of course, once again, is why it's so good in Gardevoir because you're accelerating all your psychic energies. You can manually attach per turn. Here we have 2 or 3 energies we have to attach every turn to attack with. So I'm not sure how often. When I play with Monkey Dory, that's one of the issues I've had. I don't have the ability to attach that energy to Monkey Dory because I need to power up my attacker. So that's it's just something you got to navigate with Monkey Dory as well.
Yeah, I think it's more doable when you do have some energy acceleration than in a deck like Stereo Edge. I feel like it's pretty bad in Stereo Edge. I've played against it. I've like always seen Monkey Dory when they play Stereo Edge. It's not like a big include. It's not a big commitment, and you can just toss them whatever energies. But still, I found it. It's like I don't think my opponents really used it against me. Again, you do have, I don't know. It's like it's okay. Monkey Dory is a very strong Pokemon, specifically within Gardevoir, though I think it's amazing there, but outside of that, it's okay. I guess it one shots Dracoloak with weakness with Blaze Clefairy EX, which is kind of funny. But yeah, it's solid. It's a good Pokemon.
Monkey Dory.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And hey, sometimes if the game's going badly, you got to confuse and hope that you got a 50-50 chance your opponent can't take the knockout the following turn, right? And that might be what you need to get
Yeah, if they
back
don't
to.
retreat or switch or evolve.
Well, no, I know, but right, exactly. So that's like you hope, right? You attack with that and you hope. Which hey, we all have games that get there too, but you're not playing it for that reason. So I don't know if I'd want to put Monkey Dory in the list. Most of the lists aren't playing it, but I know some are. So they're all playing the Ditto too. I think they're all the ones I'm looking at play the
Yeah, I
Ditto.
was just gonna say about that, and it doesn't play Buddy Buddy Papa, which is really interesting. Not that it's like insane, but I feel like one would be good. I mean, you're not searching it out outside of Noctowl. Once Noctowl is going, that's not the point which you want to do it. But yeah, you can get it off the Fan Rotom here, which is really good. We'll talk about Fan Rotom even more with the next deck, but yeah, Fan Rotom can get your Hoo-Hoo knocked out, and Ditto, which kind of turns into any Pokemon, but only if it's in the active. But that's pretty interesting. And Ditto's been like pretty mediocre for a while, so exciting to see it be even better, or be better.
Yeah, it hasn't gotten a lot of love really, so that'd be nice to get to see that get. I'd like to get some play. And yeah, the Buddy Buddy Poffin, because obviously after the first turn, you don't use it for Ditto. You're not using it for Fan Rotom, but you do need to get some getting like two Hoot Hoot. I would think you'd have one in the deck just to get a couple of Hoot Hoots into play once over the course of the game as an option. But
Yeah, I guess the idea is like you kind of want three on your first turn in play, but I don't know. I feel like it could be included. But anyways, that's just like a one card inclusion.
yeah, and the lists are I mean I think just in general, I'll just say it, the lists look pretty good though. They're pretty well because this isn't really a new deck. So it's a pretty good. The lists are pretty solid. I think they're pretty worked out all in all. So you got to be thinking carefully when you're cutting these cards too to make room for something like that. So they're probably right in not playing it.
Yeah. And then the next deck we have here is the Evolution box deck, which is, well, I don't know. I've called it um, it's kind of evolution. There are different builds of the deck, but it
Right.
focuses around. I can't speak. It focuses around Noctowl and Flareon EX. Flareon EX has 2 attacks, 280 for Fire, Water, Lightning, and it can attack next turn. And then also Burning Charge, your first attack here, which for Fire and Colorless, you do 130 and search to your deck for 2 basic energy cards and attach them to one of your Pokemon. A lot of the time, especially in I think one of my recent videos, like speaking of the megas and stuff, I say that these attacks that set up your board are kind of bad, especially on these evolutions. However, Flareon can get evolved turn one through the use of one of the EVs. You have two different EVs, one with 70 HP, one with 50, which can evolve instantly in the active, and EVEX here, which is an EX. It's a Terra basic, which is really good for Noctowl, and then on top of that, it can attack, and it's a cool Pokemon. But yeah, you can get the turn one Flareon EX, which is really nice. Again, we have Crispin, we see Glass Trumpet, we see an energy switch as well for some interesting options. Um, yeah, but you can attack with Flareon EX turn one.
Yeah, I mean you can. I'm not sure that I find that you can most of the time though, because you need to get. It's the energy issue, right? Besides, you have to get the EV and the active, the single prize EV. But you also then need to get the two energies onto it, which you have a couple ways. We have Crispin, and we have no,
The
oh, in the Sparkling Crystal. Although the decks I'm looking at,
No,
a lot
this
of
one
them don't
doesn't
play
play
it.
it, which is like kind of surprising. I feel like it would be a really good inclusion there.
Yeah, I was surprised looking through it. I have three lists up here. One of them plays Sparkling Crystal. One of them plays Unfair Stamp for the Ace Spec, and the other's playing Prime Catcher. So surprised to see that spread. I would think the Sparkling Crystal would be the way to go. So you've got a two attack turn one. You've got to hit your Crispin, or well, you have Terra Orb as well. So you could do that, but you have to. You need to get the right set of pieces your first turn. You can't use Noctowl turn one because it's an evolution. So, I'm not sure how consistent you're coming off with that, right? A lot of times you are, also if there's if you have your stadium play, then you just, Fan Rotom for 70 isn't always a bad attack either.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And there's a lot of different things going on in the deck as well. You have basic attackers, you have evolution attackers, which is pretty interesting. The Lotus Clefairy EX, again, you have Latias EX and Mew EX, and then you have the Sylveon EX, two one-shot Dragapult EX as well, which is pretty interesting. And you have Angelite as well. I don't know how good this attack is. Choosing two of your opponent's bench Pokemon, you shuffle them into their deck. It can't be used back-to-back turns, but it's a really interesting attack here.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've had in live the EV challenges, which encourage you to play a lot of Evolutions decks, and they like you to play Sylveon. That's one of the ones they keep saying, "Hey, play Sylveon." So trying to play that Angelate attack is fun, but I also personally, but it's also generally I found unsuccessful when I try to do it, right? And also even when my opponents do it a lot of times, I'm able to navigate around it because they're not taking out my active, right? It's just two on the bench, right? That Angelate, yeah. So my active,
Yeah.
assuming I have an active Pokemon set up, then it's not very effective in that sense. So it is
Yeah,
interesting,
and I was gonna say, as well on your bundle, you can get out of the active, but then they don't choose which two Pokemon. You'll just send up the other one,
right?
that they want. It will be like worse for you, but still, it's not super great.
Yeah, so I mean now like this one list, which I think is probably the one from the league event, it actually doesn't play Lily's Clefairy. Um, so they're not, but it plays Leafeon. The other lists aren't
Oh,
playing Leafeon, so or one of them does play Leafeon. So obviously that if you're for Charizard hitting, for grass weakness is a nice thing as well.
oh,
Um,
can you send me that list in Discord? I think you have it open as well.
which
Honestly,
which list? The one with
from the Champions League, yeah, or some different ones.
yeah, the one yeah. Let me
But yeah, the deck still it's like similar as well to the Terra Box deck. Obviously, you do have the you don't really have basic Terras. You have some. We see the Water Ogre Pawn. Also Victini in this one list, which is kind of interesting, increasing your active damage from your Flareon EX, which can be nice, boosting up to. I don't know exactly how useful it is in breakpoints, but it is kind of cool to see.
Yeah, no. So, yeah. So look, and like you said, introducing this, the evolutions are kind of like, I mean, the sense that it blends in with the Terra box, right? Because it's a lot. It's the Terras. You have to have a basic Terra. Well, you want to have a basic Terra. You have the Noctowl engine. You have a lot of different energies, which you get Crispin, and you can have overlapping attackers. We have things like Mew, Lula's Clefairy is part of it. This list here I'm looking at does have a Pikachu EX, which I'm surprised to see that. I hadn't noticed that was in the list before. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me, but maybe it does. Here, you get to play the Terror Orbs. The Glass Trumpet's a very fun card. I got to say, I haven't played with that a ton, but energy acceleration is always good. Choose up to two of your colorless bench Pokemon and attach a basic energy to them, so you can within like these evolutions works well. But of course, you have to use Glass Trumpet before you evolve. That's the one thing to remember, right? The EVs once they evolve, they're no longer colorless type, so evolve to the single prize EV or the EVEX. Get the energies you want on it. So, and you need to know, obviously, like the EVEX needs fire, water, lightning. But if you're going to evolve into a Leafeon EX, exploit the grass instead, right? You got to play it out in advance. But the evolutions are, they're solid decks. They're performing decently well, I'll say. And then the third deck, which I think is related in my mind to this, is the Terapagos deck, which is obviously its own deck and popular now. And you have the Bouffalant, so it is nice and tanky there.
hmm Oh, I will say with the Terapagos,
Hmm.
the Bouffant build is what we've been seeing in Japan, right? I wasn't really aware of this deck.
Yeah,
Looking around, I mean, I collected some data, I made a video about it. But yeah, you saw a bunch of this deck, right?
yeah. I
Like
mean,
a bit of this deck.
yeah, there was a decent amount of the Terapagos. With looking around at getting the data for the city leagues is a little weird. So, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
decent out there, and I think a decent success rate too. Because the thing you sent me was on play rates, but obviously,
But that's from the top 16 of the city leagues.
okay,
My stuff isn't quite well, so they actually released. So Japan's actually in a slightly different format than we'll be in with post rotation. They had some newer cards, so I cut it off there. Not that we've looked at any of those
okay.
in these deck lists, but did they all play? Did they play Dustor? Did any of them do that?
The ones I looked at, I don't think did. I just have one list up right now. So, but I don't think they were playing Dust Snore. I think they
Okay.
were going tanky with the Bouffalont, um, which is kind
Oh,
of
and then they're not playing Pidgeot either, right?
no, just Noctowl engine, straight up Noctowl, Terapagos, Bouffalont. The big difference is right now because it's a strong deck now, but we have double turbo energy, so we lose double turbo because you need two energies for the first attack. Makes it a little harder, but you do 20 more damage, so that 20 damage can be meaningful as well. So obviously you have to do that little extra work to get it powered up, but it's doable for sure. We got the Crispin, we got the Glass Trumpet, so it works there. And again, playing the Ditto with the I'm sorry, transformative start. So I guess we'll be seeing a lot more.
What's sudden transformation?
Is,
That's what I was thinking ability was as well. Oh, is that
I think that's the Ditto that copies the attacks, right? Am I getting that
yeah,
right?
it might be. Yeah, I was gonna say that's Zoroark, but yeah, that is Ditto, which is kind of weird. Anyway, also with Crispin, I don't think it's that much. You were saying it's like not that hard to do, and I agree. It is your supporter for the turn, but I think it's okay.
Mhm.
However, the big issue, another issue, is that it's a lot more deck space. It's like around twice as much, maybe even more than that, 3 times as much than just double turbos. So you have, I guess, less
Right.
room for these like rare candy pieces, which are like lots of deck space, like with all the Dust Noise and Pidgeot EX and stuff. It's just a more like low to the ground deck. And you do have these different energy types. So this one plays Fighting, Darkness, and Psychic. So it
Yeah.
plays, of course, Master Paniacs, Monkey Dories, and Lily's Clefairy EX. And again, you are tankier with the Bouffalant, so you get more value out of Monkey Dory, hopefully, there.
Right, because if you're just sitting at 230, that's not good enough. But the Buffalant it reduces 60 rate and does not stack. Yeah, so they need to do 290 to one shot you, which but they might
Or
not.
with Bravery Charm, though we only see one in the list I'm looking at.
Yeah, right, yeah, that's true too. And of course they can stack. So with that, and then they play Scoop Up Cyclone, which is what you want to play with something like that that's tanky. And
Yeah,
because
and with Noctowl, because we played Inteleon with Scoop Up Net, which is really cool. I
yeah,
don't know if I've used Scoop Up Cyclone with Noctowl. We haven't really talked about this, but there's been turbo scenarios in these decks we've been looking at,
right,
which is, I mean, it's similar to Scoop Up Cyclone. Essentially, it's more or less the same in this situation. I mean, it's a supporter, but and then it allows you to replay the Noctowls, which is cool. And I'm actually really looking forward to this. I don't think, have you done Scoop Up Cyclone with Noctowl yet?
no, I have not. So I assume like it's the first use is for the Tropicos EX, but then obviously to get the Noctowl back is super important as well, right? Because you can only do it 4 times over the course of the game. So and assuming and that's max, right? Assuming you have the
Yeah.
two without unless you can scoop it up with Scoop Up Cyclone or Precious Turbo Scenario. So
Yeah, sometimes this list can't do it. Well, okay, you could get like TMD vote, but that like why would your opponent ever do that? But
yeah,
then you have unless they're knocking out. But you do have Night Stretcher. There's only one in the list that I'm looking. I think we're looking at the same list.
yeah,
But if you had multiple, which I've definitely done, then you could recover these. Or if you had like Super Rod or Max Rod, we might be talking about some in the video. And if your opponent like hits you with the areas or so when Noctowl's down, assuming you're not scooping it up, or doing like something weird to get the Noctowl back to your hand, it's useless. Its attack is technically usable, but it's bad. You want it out of the board, but
right,
your opponent will probably bump the stadium. So then at that point, you just get rid of all your Noctowls, probably your Fan Rotom as well. And then at that point, you can, if you have ways of recovering them, then you can use them again, which is something I've done. Specifically with, I played a bunch of Trap Ghosts with Dustor and Pidgeot EX and Noctowl. And in that deck, you'd have a bunch of recovery for the Dusclops, the Dustnor, and then you could also use it on the Noctowls, and then be like kind of cycling these Pokemon around and reusing the Noctowls in that way, which is kind of interesting.
yeah. No, yeah. I was going to start to talk about like some of the other lists, the Terabox decks. Some of them play 2 different types of stadiums, so you could bump a stadium and then put it back, but that's 2 turns, so you're probably not doing
Oh
that.
wait, what's the other stadium?
Um, I don't remember now. I think I closed the list too.
Okay, could be a jamming tower maybe.
The one
That's
has
like
Pokemon League
connected some.
headquarters in it.
Wait, I guess that's an evolution. Wait,
Oh wait, this is it.
um,
This is the Evolution deck. Sorry, sorry.
okay, yeah, but
It's
yeah,
a
okay. I was
similar
gonna say
thing.
if that's a basic focus deck, that seems like really, really bold. But
Yeah, no,
yeah,
the
no, in
Evolution
an
deck.
Evolution Terra box deck, that's interesting. Especially I guess like for Raging Bolt and I mean like Terra box and stuff. So yeah, Trap Ghost. I don't think it's like a massive deck. Like I don't think it's super important or anything like that, but it is like kind of cool.
Yeah, I think it's not as interesting as the other decks because they have more flexibility evolutions in the Terra Box deck. Now, the Terrapagos can go in the Terra Box deck, and that's probably why I just wanted to bring it up now, just because the deck lists do kind of blur together, right? It's just some of it is, and especially like how Limitless categorizes things, right? Like if you put in decks with a whole bunch of 2 of Pokemon, Limitless kind of doesn't know how to categorize it all the time. So, which these decks can become. So,
Yeah, in play Limitless and regular Limitless, or I don't know exactly how regular Limitless works, but the City Leagues definitely are like the decks aren't really named or categorized. They're just like some Pokemon that are in the deck is what's showed. But I
yeah.
just clicked on, I have the Dunsparce pulled up, and like these decks are like some through the Dunsparce or something. It's kind of weird. But oh, this deck's the Dunsparce and then Charizard, which like obviously that's not really what's going on with the deck. It's a Charizard deck. But yeah, speaking of Charizard, actually, with if you're playing Noctowl as well, Trap Ghost I think is the Terra of choice. Trap Ghost is probably the best Terra just to chuck into things. You could do one of the Ogre Ponds as well. The Fighting or the Water one are options. The Water one's pretty niche, but it could be used. And then yeah, Pikachu X is like tossed a Miraidon, which isn't doing so great post rotation. But anyways,
Yeah, so I mean, so I think that's enough of these Noctowl uh, Terrabox evolutions, Tropicos, right? We've hit that enough. We want to
yeah,
talk.
definitely, probably. I mean, we spend most of the time talking about it, though. They are probably are the decks that are we're really excited for.
Yeah, I mean they're the fun decks to play. I would say they're the interesting decks, and interesting because it gives you a lot of options. So, right, you get to play around with those different trainers and even different Pokemon. So, going to the opposite side of things now from
Yeah.
fun, we are saying goodbye to Snorlax, so we can pause for a moment of silence. I'll let you do that. We won't be silent in the podcast, but maybe you want to do that as you're listening here, because we're all going to be sad that Block Snorlax is going away. But those type of decks aren't fully going away because there is a bunch of wall stall decks, right, that are coming out featuring Milotic and such. So you want to start talking about that?
Yeah, I actually will start by saying I played against one of these decks on the ladder. I've played against them probably more than once, but once that I really remember, which so there's some different Pokemon. You have Milotic EX, which walls all Terra Pokemon, Farigiraf EX, which walls all basic EXs. You have Mimikyu, which walls any EX and Vs, which by the way, I think Mimikyu, I've said this a lot, I think Mimikyu's better than Farigiraf EX or Milotic EX. Its ability is objectively better. Its attacks essentially objectively worse. But I think Mimikyu and its stats are generally noticeably worse. But I think Mimikyu is really good, and I'm not a massive fan of these other Pokemon. But then also Corso Mass Ogre Ponyx, which does which was a Pokemon with abilities, which is a bunch of Pokemon as
Right.
well. And then you can see Monkey Dory. Did I miss any walls? I think that's all that are in this list here.
Yeah. The surprising thing, I've called up 3 lists here, and none of them have Mimikyu in it, which I'm shocked by that. Because to me, if you're building a wall deck, first off, it's a basic. These others are, well, Cornerstone Math Oberhan's a basic, but Milotic and Farigiraf are both evolutions. So I don't know. A Mimikyu is just so easy to get in play. I'm surprised by that. So, but they're
Oh,
wall.
and especially speaking of getting into play, you have TM Evolution, and I feel like like Mimikyu using the Technical Machine Evolution is really nice. Also,
Yeah.
Mimikyu Luxurious Cape. We'll talk about that, I guess, in a little bit later. But anyway, so I was playing against it. I was playing the Terra Box, or like an older version of the Terra Box deck, and it played some Vs, so that went through the Milotic EX and the Frigiraf EX. Um, and then also their Mimikyu, I just knocked out with Fan Rotom, and then like Corso Mesogropon EX. I counter that with I don't remember what I countered it with, but there's some Pokemon in the deck that just like hit through it. So they weren't really able to do anything. And the deck doesn't do that much damage. The attackers do like 160, 140, somewhere in that, like these mid-range, like two-shotting, maybe three-shotting,
Right.
probably not one-shotting unless it's a single prizer attacks. And they're like expensive. They're 3 energies, so they're you got Crispin here, you got Team Turbo Energize. You can get the energy on. It's not super hard. I'd say the deck's actually you talk about like Snorlax, and it's like disruptive, but I'd say it's more similar play style to Iron Thorns EX.
Right. You're attacking. These lists aren't playing. Now, is Misfortune Sisters rotating, by the way? I
Yeah,
don't.
Miss Fortune Sisters is rotating.
Okay. We do have. You're not playing
Like
the.
Canceling Clone's also rotating.
That's, yeah. So that which helps out for these types of decks.
Yeah.
We do have these lists aren't playing it, but there's the supporter that looks at the hand and gets rid of two items, right? Which I'm blanking on.
Yeah, Airy, yeah.
Yeah, Aries. So that's in format still, which Snorlax played, but these aren't playing that. But yeah, they're more like Iron Thorns. You're getting going. You're attacking. You're putting like moderate pressure on, so you're trying to slow down your opponent enough and put on enough pressure. Right? It's a combination of slowing down and putting on pressure to win the game. You're not really doing enough damage to win by damage. You're a lot of these lists are playing Pokevital A as their ace spec, which I haven't played yet in a deck, I don't think. So I'll have to give that a go. That heals.
Yeah, I don't think I have. It's weird.
But I'm seeing that as the most common ace spec as I was looking at things here. So what
Mhm.
that does, just so you know, I'm going to say because I had to look it up. It does heals 150 from one of your Pokemon. So, but it's a one of use. Whereas a Hero's Cape, which is like the other way to go, you were right. Well, I don't know if you were saying that either. That gives you plus 100 HP, which could be better, right? Because that's multiple turns potentially. So, you know, you try because you need to be tanky a little bit, right? Because now
Yeah.
the
Well, Hero's Cape is it's multiple turns, but it's giving you 100 more HP. Assuming you're surviving, and then you use Poke Vitally
right.
from like max. It's kind of like, I mean, it's not like you temporarily gain the HP versus like Hero's Cape, staying multiple turns is kind of like healing 100. So in some ways, Poke Vitally is kind of just better, but only if you
Yeah.
are surviving the hit. You said it's a one-time use. I mean, all these specs are kind of one-time use. This is literally one-time use. It says this card can't be put into your hand or deck from your discard pile. And the thing that stands out to me, or I think stood out to me the most when this card was announced, is that it like doesn't work with Pokestop. That's what like I know this card for. Pokestop, it discards it because that's how Pokestop works. It discards all the cards, then gets the items back. Essentially,
Right.
you just get the items, but you wouldn't get this because it blocks it. So that doesn't really matter at all, but it's funny. But it's like not super strong ace spec, but with decks, I mean Iron Thorns what probably played prime catcher, but a lot of like control based decks definitely play, or like disruptive decks play different types of ace specs and kind of some weird cards.
Yeah, so there is like I think wall stall, which you're trying to wall off a bunch of things. You're not walling off everything, so that's the tricky part, right? And it's a weird mix of walling, I got to say, right? Because you have the Terras in the rule box with Monkey Dory, which are obviously Monkey
What
Dory.
you make?
I mean, Mimikyu hits everything Milotic does, right? But Milotic's a
Yeah.
lot tankier. Um, so that's where you have a 270, 260 HP stage one. So those are tanky-ish Pokemon. Hopefully not getting knocked out right away. You got the Monkey Dory to do some healing in the deck and such. So, you have a bunch of options. I don't know how often your opponent's gonna have a way around these though, right? Because you have so many different Pokemon for different things, but you still have gaps of the things you can wall off. So, I think if your opponent knows how to handle it, I think they'll be okay. But it's a deck. I think first and foremost, you need to play it. First for myself, I need to play it, so I can play against it. That's kind of the
Yeah.
first step.
Also, and we were talking about this before, how most of the metagame, or not most, like just under half the metagame is either Dragapult or Raging Bolt. And so
Yeah.
Milotic counters Dragapult, and for Giraffe, both EXs, they counter the Raging Bolt Pokemon, Raging Bolt EX itself, and really all the other stuff that, like the Ogerpon and stuff like that. So I think you're really targeting this meta, which is somewhat centralized around these Pokemon, obviously in a different way than like Blizz Clefairy EX, but that's kind of what you're looking at. Mimikyu is not very good against those decks. It's not terrible. Specifically Luxurious Cape Mimikyu, which will survive. It has 70 HP. There's Drakeloak, which does 70 and gets through and is not impossible. It's relatively easy to attack with. It's just a tiny bit harder to get the energy on than Dragapult because you can't use Sparkling Crystal, but it's still pretty easy. Easy. And then you also have Mew EX, which I guess go through it. But then the other one is Fan Rotom, played in a bunch of decks. We talked about a bunch of Knocked Owl stuff, and including Raging Bull. So that's why Mimikyu's not as good. Though, we'll talk about it in just a moment. But um, yeah, that's why these Pokemon are here. So if the metagame ends up being more diverse, then, or I guess less like centralized around these two decks, then I think this deck will be worse. Yeah, this is just like a tournament meta call deck. Not that it's bad against random stuff though.
Right, and one of the things I just reminded myself, so I'll just say it, with Mimikyu up against Dragapult, they knock you out obviously through the place of the damage counters when you're on the bench there. Um, but if you have Luxurious Cape, it takes more turns to do it. But they don't take the extra pies when they knock you out by placing the damage counters. So only if you have to be knocked out by damage. So they don't, and obviously
Yeah.
Dragapult's placing damage counters. So don't be afraid of giving up that extra prize with Luxurious Cape against Dragapult's spread attack.
Yeah. And same through the Monkey Dory as well. I've had that come up in games. I had that in Radiant Alakazam in Standard. My opponent, they knocked out my Mimikyu with Radiant Alakazam and proceeded to quit, I'm pretty sure, after they only took one prize. Because, it's nice. And I think there's not too much more to say about this deck, right?
No, I think we covered that. So,
Yes. No, we're talking about for Alligator, which this deck this won the big Champions League tournament, which was in this format. So I believe it's the same format, and it played Milotic EX and it plays Mimikyu as well. And it's a really interesting deck, one that I've talked about a bunch on my channel. You haven't talked about this at all on your channel outside of maybe the podcast with us together, I assume.
right. No, I have not. So, so I'm taking a look at. So for Alligator, stage two, 180 HP. So tank it for a single prize, but of course you're getting one shot pretty much. But it gives a nice attack, giant wave 160, which is okay. But then you put 5 damage counter on yourself, do 120 more. So you're doing that magic 280 number of a single prize Pokemon. Very nice there. It's 2 energies. Like this, the winning list plays one Crispin, so they could power themselves up one time in one turn, right? But
Yeah.
other than that, you're hoping you're surviving, or you're hiding behind your Mimikyu or something, or hiding behind the Badoo while you slow them down because it takes 2 turns to set that up. So I'm a little worried about that, I got to say. And then it's what's nice about it. One of the things that's fun to me is it does play the Relicanth with the Memory Dive ability. You can use your attacks of your earlier evolutions, and then you can stall them with the Totodile, right? As part of it, does 10. Um, and then also it's there for what the Feebas, right?
Yeah. Oh, a 10 does what? It's
Well,
not
the
there for the
Totodile does 10, and the
oh, maybe.
opponent can't retreat.
Actually, maybe. Oh, yeah, no, it is for the 3S. But yeah, it stops retreating. And Crocodile also does 30 and hits to the bench, the stage one. And we don't see rare candy in this deck, so you will always have that Crocodile. But yeah, the I forgot about I didn't realize the Feebas either.
Yeah, so I think it's mostly there for my luck. Maybe not. I mean, obviously, it's a counter deck, so stalling out is always it's nice. Extra win conditions are always good. So having stall, it's a nice thing to have in your pocket, right? We both liked the
Oh, wow.
Mawile, the psychic Pokemon.
It's like, is that what you're going to say?
Yeah,
Uh,
that does that. That did what's it do? 30 damage? I don't remember.
no,
Um,
Mawile did not do any
oh, no
damage.
damage, which is really what you want if you're stalling because
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about knocking them out. That's rotating for one color's energy, so you can slap it in any deck as an option, which is good. So you have the Milotic, which walls off the Terra Pokemon at 270 HP, and then you have the Feebas with its attack. The Flail attack does 10 per damage counter on it, so it gives you some nice options there. And you have the Monkey Door to heal off, so it gives some nice pieces in the deck.
Yeah, and then the Croconaw, which does 30, but the ability increases your damage of your previous evolutions. It can be used on Big Bite. I've been playing this deck a bunch in live. It has some serious issues, which we'll talk about. That I think, you mentioned the energy thing, and that's anyway, we'll get to that. But Croconaw does 30, switches to the bench, which is like not that much damage. But with your ability, you're doing 150 and switching to the bench, which is a ton of damage. We see Rescue Board, so you could be going back and forth between Mimikyu and the Croconaw, or sending up Milotic EX. So that's really useful as well.
Yep.
I've heard some people talking about this deck saying like the main idea is to be hit and run. And you're like consistently doing this hit and run style attack. I mean, Melodic EX does more damage than the for Alligator copying Croconaw with the damage boost. And then Flail, as you said, is really strong if your opponent comes up short, or if you only have one energy as well, and your opponent's just doing a tiny bit of damage to you. Monkey Dory, it plays 3 Monkey Dories, which I think is not great. This is the deck where you will be having damage on your board. Like you can guarantee, in fact, that you have yet the damage on your board using Torrential Heart, your ability on for Alligator.
Right.
Um, the math getting it a little janky, but it's fine. But then with Monkey Dory, you don't have those extra attachments consistently. You're often a little short. Crispin is just a one of. You can't really search at your Pokegears, but that's it. And then you're just attaching. So I've really enjoyed the EXP share in the deck, and I actually cut Crispin. I play Reverse Energy as well. I play a little differently, and it doesn't play. It plays one Ultra Ball and one Buddy Buddy Poffin, and then 2 Team Evolutions and 2 Artizones, and that's all the Pokemon search. And it plays 4 Arvins and Pokegears and some draw supporters, but it's a little sketchy in that way as well. But then you do have the Badoo as well. You got a bunch of interesting things in the deck. It's definitely a deck that I recommend people try out and mess around with as well. But then, yeah, just getting the energies on is kind of awkward. Also, you said 280 is a really great number to hit. I mean, it's not bad. The main Pokemon that have 280 in standard right now are actually like the V Stars, which are rotating.
Yeah.
But there are some, it's a good number to hit. You're like one-shotting stage 1 EXs. But it's not all of them, but, the ones that realistically see play most of the time. That's what this tournament Blizzy EX was there. But then, and it was like third or fourth or something. But yeah, for Alligator is still hitting like really good damage with Giant Wave, which can be boosted to potentially even one-shotting like Dragapult EX with the Monkey Doors, though that's a lot of work.
Right.
And then also Luxurious Cape on Mimikyu. I actually really want to talk about this. Luxurious Cape on Mimikyu is so good. Their Pokemon that, as I said earlier, do 70 to you, which one-shots you, but with Luxurious Cape, they're three-shotting you, which is really difficult to deal with. Then you'll trade positively with them. We see two Luminous Energies, so you can be attacking with Mimikyu there. You can attack with Monkey Door. I've actually done this multiple times with this deck, but yeah, Mimikyu with like attacking is a really difficult Pokemon to deal with. If they have Luxurious Cape on, and if you do get the knock, you do get two prizes. Also, Luxurious Cape on Feraligatr. You said it's tanky. It's like kind of tanky. It's not that tanky though.
No.
I mean, with Luxurious Cape it is, but you are damaging yourself a bunch and not necessarily healing yourself. So don't put Luxurious Cape on Feraligatr. That's like bad. Do not do that because your opponent will probably just knock you out and take an extra prize.
Yeah, I mean, the ideal world, right? You're setting up your fur alligator like turn one with Crispin. You're hitting running to the. You're not getting knocked out. You're hitting running to the bench, and then you're setting up your Mimikyu, which I guess you're attaching the rescue, which you're attaching the rescue board to. So you have your retreat, and then you're attaching to a Monkey Door each turn. So you're fully healing up as the game goes on. Your fur alligator, right? That's kind of the dream scenario. I assume what you're
Yeah,
hoping
but
for.
then you have Luxurious Cape on Mimikyu, which is like they probably
Yeah.
have like an out too. There's some weird stuff with the deck. It's fun. I think you should try like you Uncommon Fossil should try this. I actually sent the deck to you a while ago. And you didn't try it, I guess, yet. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if it's a top deck, but then I think we can move on to the next one, right?
Yeah, which is a fun deck, I guess. Slow King, right? We'll talk about that next.
Mhm.
And the Slow King with which I've tried a little, I think, but not successfully. I didn't give it a real try, and I
Do
get
you play it with Gardevoir?
um no, I didn't do that.
Do you do it with Zadu?
I think I did, yeah. And I love
Okay, I
Zatu
did it with
engines, and
Gardevoir, which is also sketchy. They're both sketchy.
I mean, so Slow King, it's a stage one, single prize 120 HP, and it's got the Seek Inspiration attack for two energies, discards the top card of your deck. If it's a Pokemon that doesn't have a rule box, you use one of its attacks. So super fun there, but super difficult to pull off, I would say. Right?
Hmm.
Or not very far from being a consistent deck, right? This is
Yeah.
um, you know, very high in the inconsistent range. So you do have the stadium, which is called what again?
Academy at night.
Academy at Night, which is critical to it. I think it came out in the same set. One straight.
No.
No. Oh, it was
It
already in
was
format.
I think yeah, because Academy at night was Shrouded Fable, I remember.
Okay.
And Academy Night, yeah, that's Stellar Crown, so that was a little bit later.
Yeah. So it lets you put a card from your hand on top of your deck. So as long as you get the Pokemon in your hand, which and now and of course with Night Stretcher, assuming you want to, you're probably reusing the same attacker over and over. You get it back with Night Stretcher, put it back on top of your deck. You're cycling through things, but you are getting one shot every turn. I assume with you have whatever I said it was
120.
120 HP Pokemon. That's not great. So you have to rely upon your Zatus, I guess, to power up because yeah, you're only playing Psychic Energy. This list plays Psychic and 4 Jet Energy. I like Jet Energy. I
Yeah,
know
this one
you,
also
you
plays 2 Reversal that I have here, which
okay.
is then you don't need to rely on Zadu in that situation. Um, assuming you're
Yes.
down, which you might be.
There's a
There's a
good
very good chance you might.
right. And if you're not down your single prize deck, and honestly, if you miss a turn, you're not losing the game automatically anyway. So I can see the reversals. I know you don't like Jet Energy, so I can't imagine you wanting to play a list with 4 Jet Energy in it. But
Yeah, I don't know. Just putting one rescue stretcher, right? Especially because you need the psychic energies for your draw engine. Like, if you draw a jet energy, you're not drawing cards. So, I can
right.
see its use, I guess. Oh, it plays 2 Badoo. I mean, Badoo's HP is, pretty low, but still. It's a pivot. And Tatsugiri, Rescue Ward would be good in that too. But, anyways.
Yeah, this other list plays Tatsugiri and it plays Kirim. Yeah, they both play Kirim. So
Well, that's what you're copying.
okay, you're copying the Kirim, right? Because you can't afford to pay for Kirim. So and you have
Yeah.
Reggie
Unless your
Gigas.
opponent plays Colossus Tenacity, which I guess Feraligatr does. And then you just copy Kyurem, or you just play the Kyurem. And then, no, Feraligatr doesn't always play Colossus Tenacity, but I think it is better with it. And then your opponent's just going to Kyurem like a bunch of times in a row, and you just lose.
So you're attacking with Kiram and Regigigas, right? That's what you're doing,
Um,
basically.
there's some different attackers. What attackers are those the only ones in your list that you're looking at?
What else are you copying here?
This one has Cockholder and Annihilate,
Oh yeah.
um,
Okay.
which are either Regigigas, Cockholder, and Annihilate are all just big knockout attackers at slightly different levels. Annihilate knocks out yourself, but instantly knocks out your opponent's active. Then Regigigas can take care of Terras, and Cockholder does a flat 250, which is not enough to one shot everything, but can be good enough in certain situations.
Right. Can be, but you don't have anything to boost the damage, I don't think, in the list as I'm looking at them. So
Yeah.
and it does play then Cypher Maniac's Code Breaking. I think, yeah, you're probably going to play that in the list to get what's on top there. And then you get to play Max Rod, which I haven't played yet either for Acepex. Acepex have ignored so far. So put any comp 5 combination of Pokemon and or basic energies, the disc pile into your hand. So, another way to get back the Pokemon so you can attack. Plus,
Yeah, which I
obviously,
think Max Rod, you like, because you need your Slowking and your Slowpoke back every turn and two energies and your like actual attacker. So I feel like Max Rod seems like really important, but you
yeah.
can only use it once. Like you need all these Pokemon every time. So this seems really like I played. I don't know if I played this. I played it as I said with a Gardevoir, and that was like not great. You played it with Zadu, and it was not great. Safe Maniacs Code Breaking is like cool. It like has good synergy with Zadu, I guess. But then you're not using it to stack your deck for the Slowking. So you need Academy at night. Um, the deck's like kind of sketchy. No, it's pretty sketchy. It's fun though, and I group these two together kind of. I've actually grouped them together a lot when talking about them. Slowking and Feraligatr, because they're these like silly. Or I don't know if these silly, like Feraligator's a bit more like controlling and stuff, but I think they're kind of like weird single price decks. Lots of different options, serious consistency issues, but they're really fun, especially to talk about. Playing them, you just like miss half the time, so that's not so fun.
Yeah. I mean, they're in that rogue beam deck area, but are seeing some play. If you pick the deck, go to a tournament. You can't expect you're going to win. You could have success, but you obviously can't be surprised if your day goes badly too, because you could just not set up with any deck. But these decks have a higher rate. You have 4 night stretchers. You have your Max Rod. You have Lana's. Well, the one list plays the
Oh yeah, this one doesn't play Lana. Lana seems good. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just plays one copy. I would think if I was building the list, I think I would first thing I'm at changing the list and putting in a rod because
A super rod.
a super rod because I just need some more recovery. That really concerns me with this deck because these are not high HP Pokemon. So if my opponent, I want to be able to give up 5 prizes, but that means I have to set up my attack 5 to 6 times, right? And I don't want to not I don't want
I
to
mean, you're
not be able
taking
to
like big
attack.
You're taking multiple prizes with every attack. Ideally, you also have Mimikyu and like Badoo to buy turns. You're saying
Yeah,
like getting like missing a turn isn't the end of the world, but
right.
if you're losing like if you're like losing a Slowking with an energy on it or something, that's like a lot of that's like a bunch of resources down the drain. So that could be pretty bad. Um, Yeah, this deck pre-rotation also like it kind of relies on not on Manaphy not being in the game because Kieran's really good. So
So this is the
yeah,
deck to play for the although the new so you want to play this in the window like the 1 month the 2 month window, right, before the new
yeah,
bench barrier comes into play.
yep, I guess so. Again, Conkeldurr, Regigigas, Annihilate still really good. And also the new Pokemon is not actually searchable off of Buddy Buddy Poffin, which is like notable here as well.
Right, and it doesn't protect rule box Pokemon. It doesn't protect the EXs, so you can still work through the EXs with Kyurem's attack, right? If you're taking multiple over 2 turns, taking 2 multi-prize Pokemon, that's okay too. So
Yeah, ideally you take three, but the likelihood
yes,
that your opponent has three two prizers on their bench or on play that also aren't Terras on their bench, then I feel like that's very unlikely.
your big problem is once they are evolved to Terra Pokemon, then your Kyurem is no good. So, but you roll with that. So so a fun deck there. Both the Feraligatr and the Slowking are very much in the fun deck territory. And do you want to talk about the Hops decks for a minute before we close things up here?
Yeah, the Hops deck's really interesting. Hops is, I think, It's the most interesting of the trainers Pokemon. The only one we're talking. Well, okay, we talked about Lily's Clefairy EX some. There's the four trainers. I'll just give a very brief rundown on what they all are, and styles of play. And Zoroark EX, it's a deck. You do some stuff. You have a draw engine built in, and you have some different attacking options. And honestly, that's the same thing I'd say for Iono's. Iono's is pretty weak and is okay. It's certainly like playable. Like fringe top 10 deck. It's whatever. But not like a standout amazing deck. The Hop stuff or Lily's Clefairy EX is the Lily's stuff. There's Lily's Pearl, which is makes like helps out a little bit, but um it's really that Pokemon. And then the Hop stuff is interesting. You have a lot of damage buffs and like buffs to the Hop stuff in general. And then you have a bunch of colorless Pokemon, and then you have or some different ones. You have the Hops Cramorant, which is like a mid-game niche or attacker. It's kind of like a mid-game Blood Marceluna EX, weaker but single prizer. And then Psychian EX, and it can be an attacker that's pretty strong within like Arcaldon EX, or you can pair it up with Matang. It's pretty strong for a bunch of metal energies, or you can play it, and I assume the list you're looking at doesn't play metal energy, or does it?
No, it just plays darkness and jet energy. This is the first one I have here.
Yeah, and then it does 30 to the active, 30 snipe, but you can boost up to 90 more to the active to do 120 snipe, or no, 120 active, 30 snipe. Again, no snipe buff here.
Right. Yeah. So you have well, you cover them all: the Hops, the Cramorant, and the Snorlax. Right. So now the hot Cramorant, you can only use probably once over the course of the game.
It says if your opponent has exactly 3 or 4 prizes remaining. So if they have 4 prizes remaining, then they knock out Hop's Cramorant. You can use it again. They obviously want to avoid that. I was messing with this playing post rotation actually a little bit, and my opponent was playing Dragapult, and I never was able to attack with it. They managed to manipulate it around that, which was not good for me. But yeah, in like general matchups, you'll be able to use it once, I think, pretty much always, except for Dragapult. And then even with like Monkey Door, there's only so much you can do. And then on top of that, you also have in some matchups you'll be able to use it twice, definitely.
Right. It's the bigger thing with that Cramorant's attacker to know is when you're going up against the deck, even if you're playing it yourself in a mirror or whatnot, you want to avoid the situation where they can use that attack, right? Potentially, where it's going to cause damage. So, your opponent has some agency over whether that Pokemon Cramorant's value has value or not. So just something to keep in mind.
So it's not like absurdly strong. I mean, it can do up
No,
to 210 with max buffs for free, which is kind of insane. But that's like with a tool, a stadium, and a Pokemon on the bench, and then 210's not like I mean, it's like good. I mean, your one Shank Pheasant EX, Latias EX, Squawkabilly EX. You don't need all the buffs to one shot that, but um, that's like not absurd damage.
no, it's not. It's I mean, because we're losing Cramorant from the Lost Zone Cramorant, and it feels like this Hops Cramorant is just like a bad version of that Cramorant in a lot of ways.
I don't know if I wouldn't say it's a bad version. I'd say you can play it in different decks. And you can also it's theoretically stronger. Like it can definitely be stronger. You don't need like 4 cards in the Lost Zone. House Caravan is like, oh yeah, turn 1 going second, I use it. But then I always find I like miss it. Like my Colossus, like I never find Colossus Experiment to like turn like 5 or something. And so I like you don't really attack with it. But Hops like Kermit's good though. Kermit was like really good for a while, and it like fell off some. But I mean, it's not like bad now. I wouldn't say it's not great, but it's not really played that much. But still, Hops Kermit, they are kind of similar. They definitely are built similarly.
Yeah, I mean they both. Yeah, that the point which I hadn't really thought about is you can slap it in other decks, right? It's a one colorless energy, so it can go in any deck. Now, if it's not a Hops deck, you're not going to have the boosting, but 120 for a single prize for one energy on a basic is good. Obviously, you don't want it stuck in play before you can use it though. So it's not bad. There is a list here that I think won their city league that does have metal energy with the Zacian, with the Hop Zacian, and it plays Archaludon to power it up though. So which makes sense there. So and then you do get, but it's mainly a Hops attacker. I think the go idea is Archaludon powering up the Hops because it does have the Hops Zacian, also has the Cramorant and the Snorlax, so it's a Hops package. But with Archaludon, slapped in to use that second attack, the 240 damage on the Zacian.
Yeah. And it's really interesting being like your first text can be just free, which is like really fun.
Yeah.
The Hop's Choice Band card is absurd. It's well on a Hop's Pokemon, it's 30 extra damage and reducing attack cost, spell, and color, so that's really good. Um, but yeah, I think the Hop stuff's really fun. Overall, there's a lot of really cool decks as well. You mentioned the Dunsparce. There's the Tyranitar, which actually might not be fun, but it like item locks if it's in the active. Oh, apparently a new set's out in Japan. I don't know if people are playing it yet, but anyways, that's for maybe next week or something. But yeah, there's a bunch of cool cards. There's a Noirin as well. I wanted to shout that one out. Attacks are free if you have the same number of cards in your hand as your opponent. And there's also Hobsebble. I'll mention that as well. It's Gust on play, which is sometimes played in Arcaludon, and I think can be played here because you have Hops Bag to get two Hops Pokemon basic from your deck onto your bench. Hops Double on play Gust on stage 1 evolution Gust is like it's pretty good, right? And
Yeah.
that could be in different things as well.
Yeah, no, I think the hops is an interesting one. I think it gives a good set of things to try to work with. So I do, I think of the trainers, Pokemon, it's the most interesting deck, I would say. And we'll see how good it is. I'm not sure how good, strong any of the trainers sets are. This one,
I
with
mean,
its
Lilith Clefairy X is good.
oh yeah, but it's not really a Lily's deck per se, right? It's just a Pokemon that's going in a lot of decks.
Yeah.
So that's not the same thing as a Lily's deck, right? Whereas the hops will be a hops deck, even if it's with the metal with the Archaludon, it's still probably going to be a hops deck around it. So and you have different options in it. So I think it's an appealing one. It's got some. I think could be some fun gameplay to me. Sorry, trying to get that out there. The hops deck. So I'm looking forward to giving that a go.
Yeah, but overall, there's a bunch of really cool decks post rotation that, again, a lot of you said this at the beginning of the podcast. I think that a lot of them you can play, but people aren't playing them. People are trying out different things, and you see new decks that people just weren't playing, not necessarily because they're bad, but because maybe they're a little weaker, but also people are just trying out new things and discover new things with the rotation. So I'm really excited to see what people come up with. I'm sure there's going to be some other deck probably that is a little unexpected as well that like kind of pops up. But we hope you enjoy the podcast. Consider checking us out on podcasting platforms or on YouTube. We are on both and 2 different YouTube channels, Uncommon Fossil and 10 Types. So slightly different things there. But we hope you enjoyed. Comment down below if you have any questions. But as I said, hope you enjoyed, and we're excited to see you in the next episode.
All right, take care.